Ladies and gentlemen, fight fans all around the world, let's talk some boxing. So we're looking at Mayweather versus Pacquiao. And we're going to look at some similar situations that arose when certain opponents faced them. Let's start with Diego Corrales versus Floyd Mayweather Jr. at super featherweight. And then we'll go on to look at Erik Morales versus Manny Pacquiao at super featherweight, the second and third fights. Okay? There's something common between the situations that arose between Diego Corrales versus Floyd Mayweather and Erik Morales versus Manny Pacquiao. And we're going to explore it right now. Now, two undefeated fighters were coming head to head. Diego Corrales, a guy that knocked out everyone, a feared opponent, faced Floyd Mayweather Jr. in what everyone expected Mayweather Jr. to not be able to defeat Diego Corrales. But there's more to this story. Diego Corrales was the IBF junior lightweight or super featherweight champion until just before his fight with Floyd Mayweather Jr. Basically, he said that his managers, Cameron Duncan and Barrett Silver, notified the IBF that he wanted to relinquish his 130-pound title because he could no longer make weight. However, Corrales said he never agreed to give up the title, even though he had publicly expressed his intention to move up to 135 pounds because he was having increased trouble getting down to 130 pounds. Corrales filed a grievance with the Nevada State Athletic Commission and later replaced Duncan and Silver with James Prince as his manager. While all of that was going on, Floyd Mayweather Jr. called out Diego Corrales to fight him at 130 pounds. Of course, Diego Corrales was making steps and measures to go up to 135 pounds. So, when Floyd Mayweather Jr. did actually call out Diego Corrales was overweight. Of course, Diego Corrales tried to make an agreement with the Mayweather team and Top Rank where he could fight at a catch weight of 130 plus pounds, to which they disagreed. Now, for those of you who know, this is one of Floyd Mayweather's hallmark performances where he knocked down Diego Corrales 5 times and the towel was thrown in and Diego Corrales lost that fight by TKO. But what's very interesting about the fight is this. It was noted that Diego Corrales' lethargic appearance might have been because he was sapped of strength before the fight ever started. He weighed in 2 pounds over the 130-pound limit on the Friday and was forced to sweat out the extra baggage in a 90-minute sauna session. So, clearly, Diego Corrales went into that fight weight drained because not only could he not make the 130-pound limit, he came at 2 pounds over it, but then he had to go through this excruciating stress of losing that extra sweat in his body so that he could actually get to weight. Another thing that's interesting is when you look at the weight of Diego Corrales and how he rehydrated after losing the weight. At 130 pounds, Diego Corrales came in on fight night at 146 pounds. At 5 feet 10 to 6 feet tall, this guy was a huge super featherweight. And that's probably one of the reasons why he carried so much power. But clearly he was weight drained going into the fight against Floyd Mayweather Jr., who came in at 136.5 pounds on fight night, perfectly healthy. So Diego Corrales not only had those problems, but he also had a lawsuit against him for kicking his wife in pregnancy, I guess because as he came closer to fight date, he got more cranky. And with fighters, they can get very violent, so you have to keep your distance from them. It was really amazing that he kicked his pregnant wife, and it was very sad. Of course, after that fight, he had to go for 11 months into prison as a result of that action. Now what's interesting is Most people don't talk about these things that actually happened regarding Corrales and Floyd Mayweather. They applaud Floyd Mayweather's accomplishments, but they forget the story behind how he won against Diego Corrales. Had Diego Corrales come in healthy and at a right weight where he could actually fight properly, who knows how that fight would have turned out. Let's move on now to Erik Morales. Erik Morales beat Manny Pacquiao in their first outing. Erik Morales was a huge super featherweight just like Diego Corrales, very feared, and having won against Marco Antonio Barrera in their second fight, he proceeded to move up in weight to lightweight. That's the 135-pound division. On moving up to lightweight, he fought an opponent in which he lost that fight, even though he was coming back at the end. On doing this, Manny Pacquiao's team called him out for a rematch, and Erik Morales responded. But because Erik Morales was already 135 pounds, he asked that Manny Pacquiao would fight him at a catch weight, as it would be very difficult for him to make the 130-pound weight, to which Manny Pacquiao's team imposed a fine on Erik Morales. Does this sound very familiar? Have you seen this scenario before? Have we just discussed this before? Okay. In Erik Morales' own words, when he had to fight Danny Garcia in 2012, he explained what happened with Manny Pacquiao. In this article from BoxingScene.com, Erik Morales explains why he gives up his WBC junior welterweight title to fight Danny Garcia and takes a $50,000 fine. At the Friday's weigh-in, Morales weighed in at 142 pounds, 2 pounds over the junior welterweight limit. Sounds familiar? I hope it does. Rather than take his 2 hours to sweat off the weight, he vacated the WBC 140-pound title and took a $50,000 fine, $25,000 per pound over the limit. According to Morales, he was trying to avoid a repeat of his past mistakes against Manny Pacquiao, where the Mexican veteran killed himself on the scale to make weight and got knocked out badly in their rematch and their trilogy meeting. I believe it was better to take care of the fight than the championship. I tried to drop the weight, but I couldn't do it. I was worried that if I attempted to remove the weight, I was going to affect the fight. Nevertheless, I think we made a good decision now. I can look good and recover from the weigh-in and win. The championships will continue to come. Once I was threatened with $500,000 for each pound over the limit in the third Pacquiao fight. Now it's only $25,000, but I will not make the same mistake twice of killing myself on the scale. We're going to go forward and we're going to win. I had a choice to either give up the weight or go for the win. I decided to go for the win. So here you see that Diego Corrales is explaining what actually happened with him and Manny Pacquiao. Here is a picture of Diego Corrales versus Manny Pacquiao in the second fight that was to happen. You can see he's just a skeleton there. And then when we look at the weigh-ins, Erik Morales, who's a huge super featherweight, on fight night he ends up being 140 pounds from his 130 pounds, which is not the normal weight he comes in at. He comes in a little heavier than that. And Manny Pacquiao comes in at 140 pounds after comfortably making the weight 128.5 pounds on the scales. Erik Morales on that night had to go and sweat off some more weight in a sauna and then make a weight pound limit, being completely drained. But even more interestingly enough is we have evidence of what would have happened if Erik Morales came in to fight Manny Pacquiao on weight. Because in the first fight he did come in on weight and he was comfortable at his weight and he beat Manny Pacquiao. In the second and third fights, Erik Morales had problems making weight. As such, Erik Morales is again another weight drained opponent at super featherweight. The trend looks very similar to Diego Corrales versus Floyd Mayweather Jr. And this all goes to show that on surface value things may look sensational. But when you explore things under the surface, you realize that a lot of things were amiss when these guys made their hallmark performances. So I just wanted to express that, showcase it, bring it to your attention that there were commonalities between Floyd Mayweather's win of Diego Corrales at super featherweight, one of his greatest performances ever, and Manny Pacquiao, two of his greatest performances ever against Erik Morales, where Erik Morales was actually weakened before he could fight Manny Pacquiao, and Diego Corrales was weakened before he could fight Floyd Mayweather, both at super featherweight. Well, I hope you guys were educated on this. You guys have a great one now.